Hey, this is Elon from Egard Watch Company, and I'm going to walk you through the top 5 things I look for when buying a watch or designing a watch. So the first thing I'm going to mention here is the purpose of the watch, and you need to know this before you start going on your hunt. Why? Because it will determine the next 4 things for you. So there's all types of reasons you'll want to buy a watch, and there's all types of situations where you'll be wearing a watch. Is the watch going to be something you wear with you every day at work? Meaning, is it going to have impact? Is it potentially going to get scratched? Is the crystal going to rub against things? Is it a watch you're going to wear only on special occasions? Is it a watch that you're going to need to be super reliable and that you can't be a second late? So the next point I'm going to mention based on that first point is the crystal type. What does this mean? There's sapphire crystals and mineral crystals. There's other type of crystals like acrylic, but 98% of watches today are going to fit into that category of mineral crystal or sapphire crystal. Usually more expensive watches have sapphire crystals and more affordable watches have mineral crystals. This doesn't mean that mineral crystals are terrible or that they're somehow, inferior to sapphire crystals. There's positives and negatives to both. So what's the big positive of a sapphire crystal? A sapphire crystal is incredibly scratch resistant. They're very, very, very resistant to being scratched. And if you think about like a watch that's just exposed to things in general, scratching is probably a bigger concern than the crystal shattering. You're gonna shatter your crystal if you drop the watch or if you really just like line up and slam it into something. Other than that, you're probably not breaking the crystal. So where mineral crystals are stronger than sapphire crystals is in shatter resistance. They won't break as easily. This doesn't mean that sapphire crystals break easily, but mineral crystals are a little tougher but scratch easier, whereas sapphire crystals don't scratch, but they could shatter a bit easier. And it's also more expensive to replace a sapphire crystal, which is something you have to consider. And actually on our watches, we use primarily sapphire crystals. It's considered the more desirable of the two traditionally in the watch market. But it's just something to know, hey, if I'm gonna be potentially rubbing this watch against things, I would opt for a sapphire crystal over a mineral crystal. The next thing is water resistance. Now, water resistance could matter a lot to you, or it might not matter at all. And again, that comes back to the purpose of the watch. Are you wearing this as a dress watch? Because chances are if you're wearing a tux or you're dressed nicely with a button-down shirt, you're not jumping into a pool and starting to swim laps. Whereas if you're wearing it as a watch that you want to go to the beach with, you want to go in a pool with, you want to potentially go diving with, well, that kind of changes the category of the watch. Now, water resistance is greatly misunderstood, and I would love to talk about it. So what you often hear with water resistance is 3 ATM, 5 ATM, 10 ATM, 20 ATM. Those are probably the standard ranges. You do have 30 ATM, you have all the way to 100 ATM. And so those are atmospheres, atmospheric pressure. You also sometimes have it by meters, 30 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, 1,000 meters. So people read that and they go, oh, okay, well, 30 meters, I'm not gonna swim down 30 meters into water. So even the lowest water resistance is safe because, chances are I'm just going in a pool or I'm wearing it in the shower. Now the reality here is 3 atmospheres or 30 meters does not actually translate to you being in a pool and waving your arm around underwater. Why? Because that drastically increases the pressure on the seals, dramatically. And so if you're gonna look at water resistance, think of it this way. 3 ATM or 30 meters means that it can get splashed. You can wear it when you're washing your hands. You can expose it to light water, but you cannot go in a pool with it. I wouldn't even shower, to be honest, with a 30-meter watch. Now, 5 ATM, I would say, is a little bit safer. I'd be okay going into a pool and out of a pool. I still would not swim with a 5 ATM watch or 50-meter watch. Where I would start being comfortable to get in a pool is a solid, reliable 10 ATM watch. And that's where you can really start swimming in a pool and feeling safe. Like, okay, probably has a screw down crown. If not, it's got very good seals and it'll be reliable. You always want to make sure that if it has a screw down crown, that it's screwed down. This is something that some of our customers have not done in the past, where they push it in and they didn't screw it down and then it got water inside the watch. You have to be aware of that. So water resistance is a little bit misleading when you just go on a website and you see 3 ATM, 5 ATM, 10 ATM. Think of it that way. If you want to use it for swimming, 10 ATM. The bare minimum if you're going to do snorkeling and even some light diving is 20 ATM. And there's some really specialized dive watches for people who take it really seriously. And if you're planning on buying a watch for diving, you should go for a watch that specializes in that purpose, that was designed for that purpose. So remember that. Everything else, 99% of the time, people just buy it and they want to go in the shower with it. They want to just wear it in a pool. So you should be fine if you're going for 5 to 10 ATM, if that's your case. If you're never exposing it to water, don't even worry about the water resistance. It's irrelevant to you. Now, the next one after that is the movement used inside of the watch. Now, there's 3 main types of movements. There's quartz movements, which use a battery. There's mechanical hand wind movements, meaning you have to manually wind the watch every day or every 2 days or every 7 days, depending on what kind of movement it is. And then there's watches that are automatic. Automatic watches have a rotor that spins and they will wind off the movement of your wrist. Just your wrist moving throughout the day should be enough to maintain the power reserve and in some cases actually make it even move up. By power reserve, I mean how long the watch will run when you take it off and just leave it. It will keep running for the next 40 hours. That's your power reserve. On a full wind, it has a 40-hour power reserve. It will run for those 40 hours. I would look for a quartz watch for the following reasons. I want a watch that is more affordable. Typically, quartz watches are more affordable. I want a watch that is incredibly accurate. Quartz watches are incredibly accurate, far more than you can go spend 10 grand on a watch. It will not compete with a $30 quartz watch. They're down to the second to the month, right? So every month they might lose a second. Whereas an automatic watch, even a good one, is losing a second to 2 seconds a day on the low end. If you look at many automatic watches under $500, they're losing 20 seconds a day, 10 to 20 seconds a day. And so a drastically different standard for a automatic watch or mechanical watch versus a quartz watch. Moving on to hand wound and automatic watches, those are both considered mechanical, meaning that they're not using electricity, a battery, to power the movement. Now, the benefits of these are very, very different. They're more for the type of person who cares about the art of watchmaking, likes wearing a movement that actually runs itself, doesn't rely on any technology, doesn't rely on a battery, you don't have to change the battery. Now, when I say you don't have to change the battery, that is a benefit, right? An automatic watch or manual wind watch could theoretically last forever, but you still have more upkeep with an automatic watch or a mechanical watch, and more expensive upkeep than you do with a quartz watch. So every 2 to 3 years, potentially every 5 years, depending on the watch, with a quartz watch, you have to change the battery. This costs anywhere from $5 to $10. But every 3 to 5 years on a movement that's mechanical, you have to service the movement. You have to clean it. You have to make sure it's running properly. And that is not a cheap process depending on the movement. Now, you don't absolutely have to do this. The watch will keep running, but it is better for the movement to do this. They also require maintenance to keep going. What do I mean by that? A quartz watch, you could not wear it for 2 years, put it on, and it's still keeping time perfectly and it's still going. An automatic watch or a mechanical hand-wound watch, if I leave it on the table, it stops running. Once its power reserve runs out, it just stops until I pick it up and I wind it again. Now, this is true of either one, mechanical hand wind or mechanical automatic. So you have to take that into consideration. Is this a watch that I want to really put attention into and care about? Because there's a beauty there that really connects most people. Most people who love watches, at least, buy or favor mechanical watches over quartz watches for that purpose, because there's something timeless about them. There's a beauty in the mechanics, and I'll bring the camera around and I'll show you all the beautiful kind of little gears and balance wheels and everything you can see in the movement that really make it special. And we like to use exhibition backs to show the movement. So there is something really beautiful about automatic and mechanical hand-wound movements. I'd like to make a note about automatic movements. This is a question that's asked a lot. It is beneficial to wind a automatic watch before you wear it. The first time. Once it's on your wrist, if you're wearing it every day, you don't need to wind it again. But that first time, you want to get the spring a little tighter. You want to wind the watch so the power reserve is up, so that it keeps good time and it doesn't unwind. What do I mean by that? You're not always moving your wrist. And so if you don't wind the watch a little bit and your wrist is still, it might not have enough power reserve to keep going, and it'll stop and you'll think, oh, my automatic watch isn't working. They said it's automatic, it should just run. No, wind it, give it a good solid 30 to 40 winds, then wear it. You cannot overwind automatic watches in 99% of cases, so don't worry about that. And the watch will run far more accurately. It's just an advice, a little tip, and it makes a big difference. So if you're looking for ease of use, low maintenance, and low cost, I would say quartz, and accuracy. Quartz, 100% accuracy for quartz. If you're looking for the artistry, if you're looking for the timelessness, if you're looking for something more unique and something that you have to take care of and appreciate, and something that you're going to pass on from generation to generation, which for me is a very important part of watches, then mechanical or automatic watches, in my opinion, are the way to go. There's something about winding a watch that kind of connects you with the piece, and it kind of makes you sit still for a moment and just kind of relaxes you and makes you think about your day. It's a form of meditation for me when I wind a watch in the morning. So that's just how I see it. Now, the last point I'm going to make, and this is point number 5, and I think this is the most important part of deciding which watch you're going to get. Ta-da, how the watch looks, right? The aesthetics of the watch are the most important thing. Why? Because you're going to be the one wearing it and looking at it. And I often see on forums, like, watches are very polarizing. There's watch purists who hate anything that doesn't look like a traditional watch. Like if it's not an homage to a Rolex or a Patek Philippe, they hate it, right? And every watch they like kind of has certain similarities. And then there's people who like things that are very, very, very different and are outside the box. Now I can tell you offhand, and I'm not embarrassed about this, I like things that look different. My dad always called watches that look like each other Me Too watches. He's like, it's just another Me Too watch. It's a watch that looks like other watches. That has nothing to do with the Me Too movement, by the way. It's unrelated to that. This is something my dad has always talked about. So he just calls them Me Too watches. He just always felt like, okay, well, if I'm going to wear something on my wrist, I want to stand out. I want it to catch my attention, and I want to feel special wearing it. And that kind of always motivated me to kind of step outside the box when I'm designing watches. And again, you can see from these 4 designs here, and this is a perfect example. I can run through each one, and now knowing that, and again, if you like how a watch looks and other people don't, I would say don't listen to them. That's the one area where I won't get people's opinion. I'll never ask somebody, hey, do you like how this watch looks, before I buy it. I will just decide on my own. I'm the one wearing it. It's my watch. They don't matter. If it's a gift, obviously it matters that the person you buy it for likes it. I hope that helped if you're ever making a decision to buy a watch. And yep, thanks for watching.